Hello, I know that it's been a week since my last video, and I just want to start it off with a bit of a good luck ritual and something to help me get off on this video to hope that it goes well. Please, Viacom, please don't take me down. Please. I love your company. I'm even signing up for an animation scholarship with you guys. Writing, art, whatever. So please, please, please don't take me down. If you don't, I promise I will continue on my animation submission that I did for you guys a while ago for a scholarship. Didn't win, but who cares? I couldn't submit it anyway. Showing how much I love your company. So please, please don't take me down for this episode review of As Told by Ginger, because I know it's making you a lot of money on the splat, and you love that money on the splat now, don't you? Okay, now that we're back, we are now going to review the As Told by Ginger episode, Lunatic Lake. I'm not sure if it's aired recently, but since it takes place over spring break and I just recently had my spring break, I felt like this was the best time to review it. Just to give you an overview of what's happening, it kind of turns into originally it was a family trip for the character Dodie, but she introduced Ginger and Macy along for a BFF vacation. What could go wrong? The episode opens up with a flashback to a manhunt of a man known as Crazy Floyd, who, according to Macy, is actually stalking around the Lunatic Lake grounds where Ginger, Dodie, and Dodie's family are supposed to be vacationing that week for their vacation. Now, like any millennial, she immediately believes any rumor she hears through the media. And these girls, excited about the trip, are confronted by Miranda saying that, oh, you guys are going to have a terrible trip because you're hiking. Don't worry, we all hate Miranda. She is pretty much every middle school millennial right now ever, and she's unimportant to this plot. Meanwhile, Carl and Hoodsie, Ginger and Dodie's little brothers, are using an old B-movie video camera to videotape their classmate, Blake Grippling, in the bathroom. I feel like there are some laws broken here. They're trying to prove their theory by Charles Darwin's theory of evolution that Blake is the most unfit person on Earth and a shame to human society, which sounds a lot like bullying, but they both bully each other, so they get away with it. It turns out Blake is going to be in a survivalist contest near the same place where all the Gripplings and Blakes and whatever are going to be vacationing that day. Well, ain't that a coincidence? Now, I would like to verify that from the statement I mentioned before, I do not condone bullying in any way, even if it's bullying against another person, because it's still bullying. I have been bullied. I do know what it feels like, and I do not encourage it in any way. So do not take the previous words that I mentioned by bullying to be fact and or an endorsement. Do you hear me, internet? No more bullying, no cyberbullying. Even if before this was a thing, stop it. Stop it. I'm not saying do that. Not you, Carl Fowley, not Hoodsie, and not Blake Grippling. And especially not Brendan Higginsby, but you'll see him later. Back to the A plot. The girls discuss their plans to do things at Lunatic Lake as Dodie goes over the rundown of what her family always does, include canned cheese sandwiches and sing Canadian geese. Yeah, middle schooler walking around at night by herself. That totally ain't gonna fly today. Macy and Ginger voice their concerns about the trip not being fun, mostly because of Dodie's mom, since she's a little intense. Of course, now here's a speech by one of the greatest mothers in animation, Lois Foutley.
Look, girls, sometimes you gotta accept a little bad with every good. Take Cal, for example. A long time ago, I learned that if I just ignore his bad side, life's a whole lot happier for all. It's obvious that this trip means a lot to Dodie. So why don't you try to just tune out Joanne's less appealing traits and let yourselves have fun?
Why can't all bums be like you, Ms. F?
Because there's not enough spandex to go around, Macy.
And now we cut to pre-mom. Hoodsie talked to his mom, Joanne, about inviting Carl, which she, understandably, from all the crap he's pulled over the series thus far, says no. But she does breaks a promise that Hoodsie made from his dad that said that he could come. As she claims of overstock, Her two men in her life decide to say, hey, please let him come. All right. But we will live to regret this, David. Mark my words. Hoodsie lets Carl know that he successfully will be on the trip, where they will be able to harass Blake Gripling. As the van pulls up, the teenagers all pile in. And one of the things I also like about this series is the kids love their mom. They don't have to be pried into it or try to avoid her in any way, unless the plot calls for it. And even then, it's for a temporary thing. They still love their mom, especially Ginger. They listen to her when she lays down the law, and she's not embarrassing or creepy. And here is a telling description of how Lois feels about fellow Mother Joanne.
I'd sooner pull my teeth out with a wrench.
But wait, there's more, and it gets so much better.
The search is still on at this hour for Floyd Boggs, the escaped inmate from the Lakeside Institution. He is described as early 40s, extremely anxious, and emotionally unstable.
Ha! Put that in a velour jogging suit and you got Joanne Bishop.
Here's what she means. Joanne becomes upset that her husband takes a different route because of a police detour because she didn't plan for it, making the girls in the car very uneasy. Carl and Hoodsie, doing their own thing in the backseat of the car, try to get footage for their film by scaring drivers and most certainly causing accidents. Whether or not they're fail or not needs to be seen. They try to play a game to calm their nerves, and Dodie puts Icy the Bridge, where you have to yell out whenever you see a big red bridge on the side of the road. You just win. And as Carl and Hoodsie talk about how they're going to open their own movie theater as 10-year-olds from showing one film. They're idealistic. Let them have that idealism. Let them be film students as they get their multiplex. The girls, meanwhile, try to tiptoe around Mrs. Bishop's wrath, which proves difficult when Ginger screams Icy the Bridge, and it turns out you're not supposed to do that in the car. Because it's bad for map reading and not because it'll startle the driver. Yeah. The party make a stop at a restaurant where Mrs. Bishop is complaining on how Carl had to go to the bathroom. Which, while Ginger tries to defend him, you can kind of see how Mrs. Bishop has been kind of targeting Ginger as if she's responsible for Carl's mistakes. To make it up to her, they bring her a bucket of fried clams, which she happily accepts. Now, as Mr. Bishop tells his wife, hey, see, he's not all that bad, she digs into the fried clams, which are delicious, and I don't know why nobody else wanted them except Hoodsie. Since she and Hoodsie are the only ones to eat fried clams, this will come up later as a plot point. As they get to the lake, they start unpacking and designate where people are going to sleep, and with certain ground rules by Mrs. Bishop, which would have been fine in itself if she hadn't been so drill sergeant nasty about it. She starts to become ill, and Macy offers her some antacids to make her feel better. She, once again, whether she knows it or not, makes Ginger and Macy feel very uncomfortable, as if they are a burden to her and her family. As Carl and Hoodsie plan on whether or not they can sneak out of the house at night and terrorize Blake Gripling. I'm calling him by his full name because that's how I remember him. And saying that they're going to stalk him in the woods by the smell of his nose. Yeah. As the girls go through the woods, they finally dwell upon the real reason they came to Luna Lake. To look at the beauty and wonder and to have fun. Unfortunately, this was not to last.
At Camp Priest, we don't say mooses, we say meese, and we feel proud, as we sing our song aloud.
Did it ever occur to you, merry minstrels, that dinner had to get on the table, and that maybe I could use some help arranging cold cuts? I'm not a one-woman deli here, you know.
Yeah, you know there's a problem when the adult gets mad at children for acting like children, and she gets jealous of middle schoolers. She tells them, hey, why don't you guys come and help me and stuff, instead of having fun. The girls obliged to help, as Mrs. Bishop dictates what they're supposed to do, and Dodie makes excuses for her behavior. She's been doing this the whole trip, and her whole life.
Oh, it's really great, Dodie. Thanks for inviting us. It's the most perfect BFF vacation yet. For sure. The truth was, it wasn't the perfect BFF vacation. I mean, from the moment we left, Mrs. Bishop didn't make us feel very welcome. Especially Carl. And it seemed like Dodie was making excuses for her. Like she doesn't want to notice how totally insulting her mom can really be. Or maybe it's me. Maybe I'm being overly sensitive because I feel caught in the middle between Mrs. Bishop and Carl. Or maybe this trip really is as awful as it seems.
It turns out that Carl and Hoodsie had already run off, though nobody really knows, and Hoodsie starts to feel uneasy about being in the woods at night without anywhere to really go and no one knowing where they're going. Carl assures him, hey, we gotta do this because who else wouldn't want to see Blake Gripling, a 10-year-old boy, tortured and traumatized on film? Yeah. They shine a light and are captured by a skunk. When I say captured, I mean cornered in a tree and horrified. Meanwhile, Joanne screams that the clams are pure poison. Basically, the clams were rancid and she accuses Carl of deliberately poisoning her. She also becomes worried that her son has been poisoned, and Ginger stands up for Carl, since she cannot always assume the worst of people. Dodie tries to defend her mom, but all she gets in return is an I don't care, with Ginger trying to save her brother, and Joanne calling Ginger a little rude bitch. I'm pretty sure it was censored in her memoir, but that's what she said. All four of them go out looking for Hoodsie and Carl, and her mother, being the stubborn woman that she is, goes out by herself, claiming her husband won't be able to do it correctly, instead of calling a park ranger. She goes down the road to a cabin and finds that it, unbeknownst to her, is the Lunatic, and she asks to rent his bloodhound for a bit while she goes to find the boys. Macy immediately notices who he is and wants to get out of there as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the boys are still stuck in the tree, trying to film the skunk, for whatever reason. They end up aggravating it even more by dropping the camera, and it's not going anywhere after that. Everyone goes through, as Dodie immediately blames Carl for ruining the trip, not remembering, hey, your brother had a part in this too and went along with it, possibly through peer pressure. She blames Ginger. Macy tries to mediate the situation by bringing up sap. Meanwhile, as the boys are stuck in a tree, the clams have got their effect on Hoodsie, and they discuss, well, we're gonna turn around. Hoodsie talks some sense into him, saying that I'm cold and nauseous, and this is not dying for your art. Instead, this is just being in pain all over the place. The duo are caught by the skunk again and are sprayed, unfortunately. As the girls come through, Mrs. Bishop has become progressively sicker and covered in mud. She claims, no, I don't want to turn around. I want Carl to see what he did to me, to show him how guilty he is and how terrible it is. The girls make up, realizing their differences in their own little 30-minute plot. We're friends again. Super duper friends. As they collect over sap. Meanwhile, they hear a scream. Her son is Mrs. Bishop, who ends up torturing Blake Gripling, scaring him half to death, making him think she's the lunatic, instead thinking that he has something to do with her boy being missing. The duo, still stuck in a tree, contemplate, hey, maybe we should shoot the film with us and our own sisters to make it easier. Now, they're pretending that Hoodsie is stuck in a tree trapped by the Lunatic. And as the cavalry comes in, Mrs. Bishop clearly thinks he's being tortured by Carl, and she gets them down out of the tree, understandably angry, telling them that the rancid clams have made her ill. Now, Floyd comes by, apparently who's been following them, and she tells him that the dog ran into the woods. He becomes angry, potentially about to attack her and the girls. Macy, the meekest of them all, rears up and attacks him, initially with the sap. Awesome moment, awesome girl power. All the kids get together with their families and decide to go home and cut the trip early. Everyone has been affected by the trip in some way, which leads to our daily lesson.
I think we were all relieved that the trip was canceled. It's weird. Even though I've known Dodie for practically my whole life, traveling with her family made me see them all in a new way. It's like everything about them was magnified by 10 times. The good parts and the bad.
Whoa.
Okay, so Carl's bad parts were like 20 times worse. But even though I knew Carl was guilty of stuff, I felt like I had to defend him. Like some kind of family instinct took over. Maybe that's why Dodie was making so many excuses for her mom. I think the only family vacations I'll take from now on are gonna be with my own wacko family.
All in all, this was a good episode. They actually incorporated a bunch of the plot together. All the characters were in character, and we actually get to see them all as complex people. Plus, it's kind of a mantra if you're a college student or going away from home for the first time. Living with your friends or someone you haven't really seen before, you'll see both their good and bad sides in a new light. All in all, watch this episode, link to the description. I'll see you next time. So, everybody's heard about the KCAs being rigged. Well, funny enough, for SpongeBob, I'm actually going to be reviewing that episode next. First segment of the first episode of 2016, where Pearl gets a job. It spoke to my heart.